Auschwitz, a place where hope was meant to die. Over 1.1 million souls perished here, trapped in a nightmare of starvation, disease, and unimaginable cruelty. Yet, in the face of such horror, where despair clung to every barbed wire and hope seemed a cruel illusion, something extraordinary happened. Two young men dared to defy the unimaginable. Rudolf Vrba and Alfréd Wetzler, prisoners of Auschwitz, didn't just dream of freedom. They risked everything to tear down the wall of silence surrounding the Nazi death machine. Their escape in April 1944 wasn't just a bid for survival. It was a mission to warn the world of the horrors unfolding behind those gates, where over 1 million lives were extinguished. How did two Slovak Jews outsmart one of the most heavily guarded camps in history? And what impact did their courage have on the Holocaust's final chapter? This is the story of their legendary escape and the report that shook the world. The camp's defense system. To understand why Rudolf Vrba and Alfréd Wetzler's escape was so incredible, let's consider the brutal defense system they faced. Auschwitz wasn't just a prison. It was a killing machine, built to end lives before anyone could dream of breaking free. The camp was surrounded by a double fence of electrified barbed wire, each strand mounted on 3.3-meter-high concrete posts and charged with a lethal 400-volt, three-phase current. Beneath the fences, concrete slabs were buried a meter deep to thwart any attempts at digging escape tunnels. These electrified barriers weren't just a deterrent, they were a death trap. Touching the wires meant instant electrocution, a fate many prisoners met either by accident or in desperate acts of suicide to escape the camp's horrors. This fence was patrolled by guards with machine guns and searchlights that swept the grounds every few seconds. Watchtowers loomed over the perimeter, spaced strategically to give SS guards a clear line of sight across the sprawling complex. These towers, manned day and night, ensured no corner of the camp went unwatched. Between the inner and outer perimeters lay a no-man's land where SS guards had orders to shoot on sight. Over 200 guard dogs roamed freely, trained to attack anyone who didn't belong. But here's what made escape truly seem impossible. The 3-day rule. Whenever someone went missing, the entire camp went into lockdown. Every prisoner stood motionless for roll call while guards searched every inch of the facility. For 3 full days, a siren wailed continuously, alerting every SS officer, police unit, and civilian within a 30-kilometer radius to watch for escaped prisoners. The message was clear. You can't hide. You can't run. And even if, by some miracle, you made it past the wire, the entire Nazi apparatus would hunt you down. Defying the unthinkable. Plan to outwit Auschwitz. Rudolf Vrba from Trnava, Slovakia, was just 19 years old when he arrived at Auschwitz in June 1942 after defying deportation orders and attempting to flee to England, only to be caught and sent to the camp. He was assigned prisoner number 44070. His real name was Walter Rosenberg, but he'd already learned that in Nazi-occupied Europe, your name could be your death sentence. Despite his youth, Vrba possessed something rare in the camps. Hope backed by intelligence. Alfréd Wetzler was 25, with prisoner number 29162, also from Trnava, Slovakia, arrived in April 1942 and worked in the mortuary, recording the grim toll of those who died outside the gas chambers. Both men, through their roles as registrars, witnessed the camp's brutal efficiency. Vrba in the Canada unit, sorting the belongings of murdered Jews, and Wetzler in the mortuary, cataloging the dead. They saw the construction of a new railway spur, a chilling sign that the Nazis were preparing to exterminate Hungary's nearly 1 million Jews. This knowledge lit a fire in them. They had to escape, not for themselves but to warn the world. Their plan was as meticulous as it was daring. Previous escape attempts had taught them hard lessons. Most who tried were caught, tortured, and executed publicly to deter others. For months, Vrba and Wetzler studied every aspect of the camp's security. They noted guard rotations, identified blind spots, and most crucially, they figured out the weakness in the 3-day rule. Here's the brilliant insight that made everything possible. After 3 days, the search perimeter shrunk dramatically. The Nazis assumed that any escapee who hadn't been caught in the initial dragnet was either dead or had moved far beyond the local area. Guards would return to normal duties, and the intensive patrols would end. But where could two prisoners hide for 3 days in a heavily monitored death camp? The answer lay in one of the camp's expansion zones, the Mexico, where new barracks were being constructed for expected Hungarian Jews. Vrba and Wetzler discovered a gap between wooden planks in a partially built structure, not big enough to be noticed by guards, but large enough for two desperate men. Fellow prisoners helped them prepare a hollow within the wooden plank, and they sprinkled the area with gasoline-soaked Russian tobacco, a trick learned from Soviet POWs to mask their scent from the SS-200 guard dogs. Their plan was audacious in its simplicity. They would hide in plain sight, wait out the 3-day search, then make their move when the heat died down. But first, they needed to become invisible. Escape and the journey to freedom. On April 7, 1944, as the camp buzzed with activity, Vrba and Wetzler slipped into the woodpile, their hearts pounding as they burrowed into the cramped, dark space. While guards counted prisoners at evening roll call, the two men were already hidden in their secret compartment, barely able to breathe in the cramped space. The siren began wailing almost immediately. Searchlights swept the camp, dogs barked, and boots thundered as hundreds of guards turned the facility upside down. For 3 days and nights, Vrba and Wetzler remained motionless, fighting off cramps, thirst, and the terrifying sounds of the manhunt just meters away. Every few hours, they heard paws and sniffing just outside their hiding place, but the putrid smell worked perfectly. By the third night, the searches had become routine. Guards walked past their hiding spot without the frenzied intensity of the first day. Finally, on the night of April 10th, the siren fell silent. But now came the truly dangerous part. Emerging from their hiding place after 3 days was like being reborn. Vrba and Wetzler could barely stand, their muscles cramped from the confined space. But they had no time to recover. They needed to cover as much ground as possible before dawn. Using a compass Vrba had somehow acquired, they navigated south toward Slovakia, traveling only at night and hiding during the day. They had a single advantage. Wetzler spoke fluent Polish and German, allowing them to potentially bluff their way past checkpoints. The journey was a nightmare of near misses. They dodged German patrols, hid from collaborators, and went days without food. At one point, they were so close to a German unit that they could hear individual conversations. Another time, they spent an entire day submerged up to their necks in a swamp, breathing through reeds while search parties passed overhead. A Polish peasant woman, risking her own life, fed them coffee and potatoes, guiding them toward the Beskid Mountains. Their luck held when an SS officer spotted them hiding in a park in Auschwitz, but, inexplicably, did nothing. After 11 days of this cat-and-mouse game, covering nearly 200 kilometers on foot, they finally crossed into Slovakia. On April 21, 1944, they reached Zelina, Slovakia, and contacted the Slovak Jewish Council. Exhausted and emaciated, they dictated their harrowing account, each questioned separately to ensure accuracy. Local resistance fighters, initially suspicious these two emaciated men might be German spies, eventually accepted their story. Over several days, from April 25th to 27th, their testimony became the Vrba-Wetzler Report, a 40-page document typed and translated into German by Oskar Krasniansky. It detailed Auschwitz's layout, the gas chamber's mechanics, and the staggering death toll, estimating 1.75 million Jews murdered between April 1942 and April 1944. It also warned of the imminent deportation of Hungary's Jews, a genocide already in motion as transports began on May 15, 1944, at a rate of 12,000 a day. The report's impact was both profound and heartbreaking. Sent to the Allies, the Vatican, and the International Red Cross, it faced delays. Rudolf Kastner, a Hungarian Jewish leader, allegedly suppressed it to negotiate with the Nazis, saving 1,685 Jews on the Kastner train, but allowing 437,000 Hungarian Jews to be deported, most to their deaths. By June 1944, parts of the report reached Swiss newspapers, sparking international outrage. Pressure from world leaders, including Franklin D. Roosevelt led Hungarian Regent Miklos Horthy to halt deportations on July 9, 1944, saving an estimated 100,000 to 200,000 lives. The report, combined with accounts from other escapees like Jerzy Tabo, Arnost Razin, and Czeslaw Mordowicz, became the Auschwitz Protocols, used as evidence at the Nuremberg trials. The aftermath. Vrba and Wetzler's escape had consequences far beyond those they saved directly. Their report became crucial evidence in the Nuremberg trials, helping to document Nazi war crimes. It also inspired other prisoners that escape was possible, leading to increased resistance activities within the camps. Rudolf Vrba survived the war, earned a PhD in biochemistry, and became a respected professor in Canada, publishing his memoir, Escaped from Auschwitz in 1963. He spent decades speaking about his experiences, ensuring the world would never forget. Alfréd Wetzler returned to Slovakia, where he worked as a journalist and writer, chronicling the horrors he'd witnessed with his memoir, Escape from Hell, appearing under a pseudonym in 1963, tinged with Soviet-era propaganda. Vrba died in 2006, Wetzler in 1988, both haunted by the delayed distribution of their report. Their escape wasn't just a physical breakout. It was a moral stand, exposing the Holocaust's machinery and saving countless lives through sheer will and sacrifice. The escape of Rudolf Vrba and Alfréd Wetzler proves that even in humanity's darkest hour, hope and courage can triumph. Their story isn't just about two men who refused to accept the impossible. It's about the power of truth to change the world. In a place designed to strip away dignity, identity, and hope itself, they chose to risk everything not just for their own freedom, but to save others they'd never meet. That's not just legendary. That's the very best of human nature shining through the very worst of human cruelty. Their escape reminds us that resistance takes many forms, and sometimes the most powerful weapon against evil isn't a gun or a bomb. It's the truth, carried by those brave enough to tell it.